When you think of the most tragic figures on Middle-earth, your mind might first run to the sad images of Smeagol consumed by the ring, unable to live anything but a sad, tortured life. Or maybe you might think of Faramir, the hero of Osgiliath and the second son of Denethor, who dutifully followed the orders of his father, even though it nearly led to his death. But I think there's one figure who's far more tragic, and it's actually one that you guys might really disagree with. I'm talking about Melkor, the great Dark Lord. He is the reason that the entire world is filled with evil to begin with. He fathered dragons, trolls, and orcs, and he turned ancient gods, the Maiar, into Balrogs. He even destroyed entire continents and nearly the entire world. Now, he doesn't seem like a tragic figure at first, but if we look at his life closely, we'll see something. Beneath the millennia of war and death, at his core, we see that Melkor is just a child, and more than that, he's just a child who's doing everything that his father had designed him for. Let's take a step back and start at the beginning. What do you know about Melkor? Before the creation of the universe, there was nothing except Eru Illuvatar. He was the main god. He was the great creator of all existence in Tolkien's universe. And before Eru made anything, he first made the Ainur. These were angels or gods, and the greatest of their rank was actually Melkor. Now, it's really important that we pay special attention to exactly how these Ainur were made, because Tolkien tells us that they were sprung from the mind of Eru, so that each god represented an aspect of the creator's very own mind. That means there were angels who loved planting trees, some who were interested in stars, others who loved to hunt, and still others who were passionate about leading. And again, each of these things was just a direct reflection of Eru's self. But the most important part of Eru Illuvatar was his ability to bring ideas into existence, his love of creating the universe and everything inside of it. And that aspect of Eru's mind wasn't overlooked when the Ainur sprang to life, because one of those angelic beings was also enamored with creation. This was Melkor. He was the greatest of the Ainur when they first were created, perhaps because he was so much like his father. Unlike the other gods, he would wander through the great void. Again, there was no universe yet, no earth, there was not even a physical form, there was only Eru and his gods. When Melkor wandered through the void, leaving his brothers and sisters behind with their father, he would think about himself, and his nature, and his existence, and actually he would think about what he wanted to do. And he thought that more than anything else, he wanted to be able to make things. He wanted to be like his dad, essentially. So he would spend his time looking for the special power to make actual creations. This was something that only Eru knew about, and only he knew how to wield. It was called the Flame Imperishable, or another name for it was the Secret Fire. Melkor didn't know it at the time, but he could never actually find the secret fire because it was imbued in Eru himself. Now, doesn't that seem a bit sad? Imagine a child admiring the work of his father and simply wanting to be like him. And instead of promoting his creativity, and perhaps even giving Melkor an alternate universe to play with, which Eru Illuvatar absolutely could have done because he had the power to do that, he instead chose to just chastise Melkor in front of all of his siblings. Eru would often try to suppress Melkor's independence to, push back against his creativity. When Ilúvatar first went about making the universe, he actually organized all of his gods in a great choir. He wanted them to practice making beautiful music together. Eru, of course, was the one who came up with the general theme of the music, and then he would go on to conduct the group. But unbeknownst to the gods, Eru planned to later use this music as the inspiration for the actual physical universe. And he wanted the Ainur to share in that creation by, adding in their own musical notes and melodies. But it was important that they stayed on the theme. He didn't want any of them to step out of line and unbalance what would become the universe. They needed to play the music, but not contribute anything that was too out of line. So when Melkor began offering riffs and solos, letting loose with his own take on the music, Eru couldn't stand it. Again, Eru had a very specific plan, and he wanted the gods to play the music in that style. But Melkor wanted to be an equal contributor. He just wanted to be like his dad, Eru. After all, he was from the very part of Eru's mind that was responsible for independent creation. When Melkor disrupted the choir a few too many times, Eru scolded him, and he went so far as to tell Melkor there was nothing he could do that would ever suppress Eru's own plans. He explained that since he created everything, even Melkor's offbeat solos were part of his grand plan. So essentially, if we want to again imagine Eru like a mortal man, like an actual, human father. He told Melkor, his son, if he tried his hardest, he would never be as good as his old man. And what kind of a thing is that to tell your son? And what's the point of even allowing beings to come into existence from every part of your mind if you just reject the ones that want to be independent? Doesn't this just sound like every sad, toxic father-son relationship? It was from this point that Melkor really spiraled out of control. He was created as the greatest of the Ainur, but after Eru Illuvatar scolded him, the great creator soon made the physical universe, and Melkor realized that he would never be allowed to make things on his own. But he wouldn't stop trying. So he spent his life destroying the things that his father made, and he especially hated the things that his father's favorite children, Manwe and the other Valar gods, made on Earth. Perhaps when Melkor created the orcs and the trolls and the other evil beasts in the world, he wasn't creating things that he personally liked. He was just creating ugly creatures to upset his father. You know, why should his father be allowed to enjoy creating beautiful things when he refused to allow Melkor the same privilege? And because he began his existence as the greatest of the Ainur, and because he fell so low by the end of his life, you could say that Melkor is, of course, the most tragic figure in the literal sense of the word. But I think you could also go a step beyond that. His life was so tragic because he possessed the greatest power, the desire to create independent of his father's plan, and it was because of that single trait, the fact that he was so similar to his father, Eru Illuvatar, that he spent eons in misery, only inflicting pain on others because he was upset that he couldn't do the simple things that he wanted to do.